Greetings from Corsica, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well. The adventure continues with some assistance from Aurora. So, if Aurora will permit me, I will plunge right in with Kyle O'Brien, because we have a lot of ground to cover today, and some of it is quite important, and hopefully some of it is going to be entertaining. Kyle O'Brien says, Lady C, I am very glad you have been covering all that went down in Jamaica at the Bob Marley premiere, not only just to keep us informed, but I also adore all your Jamaican sayings and isms. Thank you. I have to say, I am really lucky to have been born in Jamaica at the time that I was, in the family that I was, in the circumstances that I was, surrounded by the people that I was. Jamaicans, I've always said, are very positive. Whether they're positively positive, positively negative, or positively neutral, they're positive. I love my Jamaicans. So anyway, to continue, please keep it up when there is more information to tell. I was wondering if you would care to comment on what the BBC has released in relation to the Martin Bashir inquiry a few summers ago. It appears in an email in 2020 that not only does he deny he ever forged anything, but Bashir was playing the race card to his own benefit. It also seems, based off the article, that the BBC has much more to be unearthed from the setup of that interview, but it seems that a relevance, quote unquote, is what is all the way here across most of it at bay. I don't like the smell of it from all the way here across the Atlantic. I'd be delighted to hear your thoughts and pearls of wisdom. Well, yes, the BBC has been forced to, by a court judgment, to release the emails, and they have redacted left, right, and centre, pleading all sorts of, which hopefully will turn out to be spurious reasons to protect their own kind. This is but the tip of an iceberg, or maybe a better analogy would be, this is the head of a rotting corpse that stinks to high heaven, and the head is but 1/7 of the whole body. So, according to Martin Bashir, playing the race card, the reason why they were, oh, poor me, and just like Meghan, I'm suffering because I'm not white, and it's all those racists who are giving me a hard time, notwithstanding the fact that I did such a fabulous interview with Diana. And I never lied. I never forged anything. No, it's all racism. Just the way they carry on with Meghan. She's a wonderful person, and I'm honest as the day's long. I have to say, all the evidence is there of a massive cover-up that goes right to the top and encompasses a very great many people in positions of influence and authority who will hopefully be caught in the net. They had no compunction about destroying that poor graphic artist's career and, to an extent, life. They had no compunction about covering up for Martin Bashir after he lied, cheated, and conned poor Diana into really putting her over the edge. She already had a tendency to paranoia. You do not play upon the weaknesses of people, especially when those weaknesses are mental illness. It is iniquitous. I want to see all of them stripped of their pensions, and where I am concerned, and I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, Martin Bashir should be charged with forgery and any other crime he has committed, and he should be tried like the common criminal he is. You know, Andy Webb should also be acknowledged for his tremendous fortitude and perseverance. The problem is, as I was told by a former senior employee for many years of the BBC, it is stuffed full of MI5 and MI6 operatives. I'll tell you what Andy Webb said. I'm astonished that the BBC assured Judge Kennedy that all this material is irrelevant. A simple glance tells you that is not true. With literally thousands of redactions, it's impossible to determine at this point who said what to whom. But I'm sure that will emerge in time. And the release of the material by the BBC has been completely chaotic. Whether that's cock-up or conspiracy, who knows? Well, I don't think it's cock-up. I don't think they're cocking anything up. I think they are quite deliberately covering up for themselves, for their iniquitous actions, for Martin Bashir's totally unlawful actions. And doubtless some of them will have gone on to be collusive and conspirators in covering up crimes. The BBC said, and I'm going to read out what they said, throughout this process we have taken our responsibilities to comply with the directions of the tribunal extremely seriously. They certainly have, but they didn't say that they've decided to be cooperative. They've certainly taken the responsibility to comply with the directions of the tribunal extremely seriously so that they can cover it up. Therefore, we've today released approximately 3,000 documents, some 10,000 pages to Mr. Webb. This latest disclosure includes many hundreds of pages of duplicates and material that was not related to the 1995 panorama, but was nevertheless caught by the electronic searches. We have made redactions, of course, where necessary. They don't understand the meaning of the word necessary. Well, they do how it applies to themselves, but not in terms of honesty, I'm sure. Consistent with the Freedom of Information Act, there is nothing to support the allegations that the BBC acted in bad faith in 2020, and we maintain that suggestion is simply wrong. I don't think it is. If you think I'm defaming you, BBC, please feel free to sue me. We have worked to provide relevant materials throughout this lengthy process. Worked to provide for what? Not the edification of all, but for, doubtless, the cover-up. Anyway, which has involved extensive archive and record searches spanning nearly 30 years. We have also accepted and apologized when errors have been made and taken extensive steps to rectify those errors. The BBC commissioned Lord Dyson to conduct an independent investigation so he could gain a full picture of what happened in 1995, including by obtaining any additional materials people other than the BBC might possess. Isn't the BBC noble? They are soon going to be wanting us to give them medals for their honesty. Anyway, enough said on that. I think I've made my sentiments clear. Rack MCD says, "Hi Lady C, I enjoy your videos and value your insights on various topics of discussion. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. It means what I'm doing is worthwhile and not pointless. Thank you. I have a question. So, if Harry formally received a request to use his influence to stop the abuse at African parks, and he didn't do so, can the victims who were abused after that request sue Harry for damages, given his position at the time of the request?" Well, that's a very interesting question. I'm no expert on Congolese law, nor am I an expert generally on African law. The Congo was Belgian, it wasn't British, so I have some reservations as to whether it is the basis of its law is English common law. Also, you know, Americans are great where suing is concerned, and they get huge damages for trivialities, while in many other countries, this country included, the award of damages is usually so small that it's not commensurate with the offence that was committed or the damage that that offence caused. And therefore, it's pretty pointless suing. That's one thing. Another thing is, these people need protection. They need to be protected. Their way of life needs to be protected. And it needs to be balanced with the interests of the state of which they are citizens and of the other ecological groups that have interests which could possibly conflict. Now, there is no way that the Baka people should be mistreated, nor should their authentic way of life be interfered with and they subject to abuse as they try to live true to their culture and their civilization. But Harry is but one of many people who has been caught up in this. This, it emerges, is an ongoing scandal of several years standing, maybe even 10. And it's only now that all of not only this, but other issues are coalescing as one thing after the other pops up, and people begin to realize the level of corruption that has been endemic worldwide in the last several years. But suing Harry, he's not personally liable. I don't know that he would be held personally liable. He's certainly morally liable for refusing to do anything except step down from his role and take another role in the same charity. He if he's liable for legal damages, I would not discourage the victims of the charity that he was the president of from failing to pursue a course of legal action against him and everybody else who is liable. You know, Harry Truman used to say that if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, and that the buck stops with him. Well, the buck stops with the head man, and Harry was the head man. And after he did his Pontius Pilate, he was one of the underlings who was still associated with the head of the charity, even though he no longer was. So hopefully that, in a sort of way, answers the question, because it's a more complex issue than we realize, as we are about to discover. Foxytrot says, in people's complacency, they're complicit. And that, I think, is the shift that we're seeing. To go, it's not enough to just be a bystander and say, well, it wasn't me. Meghan Markle said that in July 2020. Yea, that's what she said. Foxytrot, yes. Meghan has been very complacent and has made herself complicit. Harry has been not only complacent, but desperate to wash his hands of responsibility, and has therefore shown that he is complicit according to their judgment. They are complicit by their own account. Oh, I forgot. Where they're concerned, their rules don't apply. You rabble gonna fly commercial or not at all. And we, the special people, not like you, the little people, we go by private jet. Our rules don't apply to us, they only apply to you, the people, the rabble, the inconsequential. If I could smell, I'd say, I need to be well away from you. You all reek. You reek of inferiority. You don't have the delicious scent of superiority that so appeals to us. I think that's the message, isn't it? Jean Hunter says, there are areas that are protected in our African countries, and the guards are there to protect the animals. Otherwise, none will be left very soon. Several guards get killed every year because the poacher gangs shoot to kill, and the guards have to defend themselves. Villagers are not always innocent darlings. Please see what bushmeat is about and where the chimp, orangutan, elephant, and pangolin, etc. orphans come from. Punish those who break the law, but please do not play into the hands of the poachers, because Harry is involved with the charity and he is disliked. Jean Hunter has a very important point to make. There is a distinction between poachers, who are professional thieves as well as professional executioners of animals, and tribal people who wish to pursue their way of life. Where there is a conflict, it needs to be resolved civilly and fairly. It certainly cannot be resolved with armed gangs, whether it's of a charity or not, physically in all ways abusing people, including women and children, as well as men. You know, they're not allowed to ravish women any more than poachers are allowed to kill animals. So I make that point for what it's worth. But my understanding is, sorry, that the complaints are not based upon the activities of poachers. They are based upon the activities of criminal guards. And, you know, I've often said it's no accident that Hitler's father was a minor customs official on the Austrian border and was very authoritarian, very impressed with his little bit of power, because it has been my observation throughout my life that very often when you give people with little brains a little bit of power, it goes to their little heads in a very big way. And they abuse that power to the detriment of society and of the citizens within a society. These are age-old problems that always need resolution. That's one of the reasons why we have a civilized society, so that conflicts of this nature can be resolved in as life-enhancing and peaceable a way as possible. And that means each party being responsible, including the president of African parks. Oh dear, Mickey, what's happening with you? Anne-Marie Thompson says, I doubt this will be answered. Never doubt. But I'll give it a go. Atta girl. Lady C, do you have any thoughts on Catherine's Uncle Gary apparently going into the Big Brother house? I cannot imagine that Catherine or William are okay with this. If Gary does do it, it will not be viewed very favourably by the public. He's not even a celebrity. Can the royal family stop this? Or are they prepared to allow him to destroy Catherine's credibility? Anne-Marie Thompson, thank you very much for the question. Well, it's rather more complicated than you seem to be considering it. Let's put it that way. Now, all families have embarrassing members, at least every family I've known. That includes the royal family and those who have married into the royal family. We live in a free country. Uncle Gary is allowed to make himself a shed load of money if he pleases, and is allowed to go into Big Brother, and is allowed to make an idiot of himself if he so chooses. Catherine and her mother are not able to stop Uncle Gary doing what he wants. They're not in a position to write out a check for well into 6 and maybe even 7 figures. And therefore, they can't stop him. It's business. And, then once he's in the Big Brother house, it's up to him how he conducts himself. And I mean, I went into the jungle, and I have to tell you, not everybody was thrilled that I went into the jungle, but it did me no harm. I conducted myself in a way that I regarded as creditable, and fortunately, the vast majority of the British public seemed to have agreed. But I had my critics, and doubtless he will have his critics. But is he going to be trading on the connection? I doubt it. Is he going to, if he desires, defend his niece? I suppose he might well do so. And indeed, if he didn't do so, people would think that something was wrong. I think this is one that we should watch and wait and see before coming to a conclusion. Oh, it would have absolutely been much better had he turned down the offer. But he evidently is a businessman, and he wants what is relatively easy money. He'll be in the house for, I think, about 4 weeks maximum, and he's going to be earning, well, maybe £250,000 a week, at least. That's not such bad money. So let's wait and see. I don't intend to be judgmental until I see what I have to judge, because, when I went into the jungle, and Susanna Constantine was there as well, and as soon as I saw her, I went up to her. I said, "Oh, Moo sends love." No, I said Mary Michelle, because my children call her Moo. I said, "Mary Michelle sends love." And I moved into her, because we're magged 24/7, and said, "Not a word about the royals, okay?" And neither of us said a word about the royals. So it can be managed. Let's wait and see. And quite frankly, if Uncle Gary says one or two things that lambast people who've been taking advantage of his niece, I think that might go down rather well with many people. Sandra Dahl says, oh, and may I say, it doesn't affect Catherine's credibility, no matter what. They're not that close, number one. And number two, even if they were, she stands and falls on her own merits, and so does he. Sandra Dahl says, just announced, Meghan will be playing her old role in the upcoming Suits in LA by Netflix and co-directing the last episode. How do you, Lady C, and your fans think this will go over? Like a flying pig? I don't know what the target audience needs to be to succeed. I can't imagine that it will. I won't even take a peek at it, but maybe it would be a good thing if it keeps her occupied and away from social media. Is Netflix unaware how difficult she is to work with? Could this just be one big lie yet again? Flying pigs, my dear. Flying pigs. Flying pigs. Absolutely flying pigs. Meghan played a relatively young woman who she was actually playing a part of a woman who was a good 10 years younger than she was. in suits, Meghan would be a very, very poor casting as a 40-something-year-old ingenue, wrapping those chicken legs and those chicken feet around poor Charles J. Adams the way she used to. I would be very surprised that this is anything but pie in the sky, or better still, pigs flying. However, I wish the rest of the team well, and if there can be a revival of Suits without Rachel Zane, or maybe a younger Rachel Zane, although Charles J. Adams isn't getting any younger either. And how convincing is he going to be as the young, up-and-coming lawyer? Well, I mean, he can actually graduate to just being a mature lawyer. Let's wait and see, because I'm not convinced. I don't know who else is, but I'm not. Annexus says, Dear Lady C, you have indicated for a long time that the spare and the wife, left to their own devices, would eventually show who they really are and self-destruct. Hats off to you for calling that outcome out, well before the rest of us had even seen through them. Annexus, thank you very much for that. I am a firm believer that Heraclitus got the measure of the human condition when he said, character is destiny. You don't need to be a fortune teller to be able to understand that character is destiny, and that whatever your character, it is going to predetermine your destiny, at least up to a point. I've been through the ringer with the Harrys and Meghans of this world. I know that if their victims exercise enough patience, they work themselves through the alphabet using their wisdom, which extends from A to B, as they work their ways through the gamut of the alphabet from A to Z, showing everybody what they are. It's experience. Experience teaches wisdom is another adage. And it doesn't always teach everybody wisdom. But fortunately, when I was 18 years old, my guardian said to me, no, I was 19. My guardian, Frances McCall in New York, said to me, she said, you know, Georgie, you're shaping up to be one of those people who learns to perfect their mistakes instead of learning from them. You better learn and wise up. You have to learn from your mistakes so you learn to perfect them. I thought, wow, she's right. That is with a word to the wise. And I took it on board. So, if you've seen people like that in action before, and sadly I have, there is a sameness. There is a Yawnsville sameness to what they're about. Dave Wood says, Dear Lady Campbell, given the fact that the US State Department issued a travel advisory to US citizens because of the high level of crime in Jamaica, And given the fact Harry is supposed to be adamant about security for his family, why would he go moolah, moolah, moolah? Influence, influence, influence. Publicity, publicity, publicity. To not interrupt myself. Surely the Jamaican government would not spend taxpayers' dollars to give him extra security. If he did bring his own security, then isn't he setting a precedent for his court case? Would appreciate your comments. Thank you. Dave Woods, thanks for that. It's not only the United States that has issued, I'm afraid, I have a little bit of Mickey's fur sticking to my lipstick now. It's the United Kingdom government that has also issued a travel warning. The fact of the matter is, Jamaica has a very high crime rate. It's had a very high crime rate since Jamaica was blessed with the presence of Michael Manley. It's democratic, socialist, Soviet Union loving, Fidel Castro worshipping troublemaker who not only destroyed the economy of the country, but also encouraged crime. You know, once you let the genie out of the bottle, it's very difficult to stuff it back in. But of course, Harry wasn't in the slightest bit perturbed. Why would he be? He had his protection. He had his own protection. He didn't have Jamaican protection. He had his own protection. He was not an official visitor. He was not an official visitor. I repeat it again. He was not an official guest of the Jamaican government or the Jamaican people. This is something that if Ravek and the Home Office's lawyers have any sense, they will argue to Harry's detriment. Harry goes into places that are much more dangerous than the United Kingdom with not one bit of evidence of any nervousness or compunction. In New York, he even got out of his vehicle that was supposedly protected and got into an ordinary yellow cab without his security. What does that tell you? I know what it tells me. It tells me that for all his claims to the contrary, Harry feels perfectly safe. And he is safer in the United Kingdom than he is anywhere, because we have less crime in this country than any of the other places that he with alacrity steps into without any real protection. Let's hope the Home Office and Ravik rule as they, well, let's hope the judge rules as he ought to, having listened to the submissions of Ravik and the Home Office, because they're fighting it. But of course, Harry wants all the bells and symbols, SYMBOLS, as well as CYMBALS, that rattle along with being an internationally protected person. Free security, security, not only security, and not only free security, but also access to all sorts of information, not to mention the police outriders stopping and letting him through traffic lights. Oh, it's very buzzy. And he and that bee that he's married to, who stings like an asp as well as like a wasp and a bee. No, bees die when they sting, so she stings like a wasp and an asp. I think you've got the point I'm trying to make. And Michelle J. E. A. Andrews says, have just been watching the 1970s TV series The Pallises. In the show, the dukes are addressed as His Grace. Is this correct? And do you think people address Harry as such? No, Harry is not His Grace. His Grace is for non-royal dukes. Harry's address would have been, had he been allowed to continue to use it, it would have been Your Royal Highness or His Royal Highness. Now that he's not allowed to use that, it simply short circuits the whole thing. And he is, if people wish to refer to him respectfully, they just simply refer to him as Sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Let me introduce the Duke of Sussex. They can't say, let me introduce His Royal Highness, the Duke of Sussex, because he was forbidden from using that honorific. However, he insists upon it privately. He insisted upon it in court. Well, the late Queen's dead, and he pretty much feels, let's see what we can get away with. But he's just he's never going to be, unless he is stripped of his royal rank of prince and retains the peerage. He's never going to be His Grace. He's always going to, as long as he remains royal, His Royal Highness, whether he's entitled to use it or not, and then just referred to as the Duke of Sussex or Sir. I hope that answers the question, and we end on a nicely uncontroversial note. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I can be guided by you as to what we should be speaking about. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. And if you have really enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care.